Hello. I'm just waiting for our guests to join in. It'll be just a second. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. So welcome everyone to the Challenge America show. Where we explore some of the challenges that military families face and some of the strategies that are successful in overcoming those challenges. And today we're joined by Alex Schimmel. Alex is the Director of Community Engagement for Challenge America. So welcome, Alex.
Hi, glad to be here.
Great. So let's start off with you and your background and tell us a bit about yourself and how, if I understand correctly, you started out actually pursuing a legal profession and found your way into social media. So how did that work? How did you stumble into social media?
Well, as I said, in undergrad, I was pre-law. I'm actually a communication major. I went to the University of Colorado at Boulder.
Okay.
And once I got out of college, the first cool job that presented itself while I was taking the time to decide whether or not I wanted to invest in law school was actually at an ad agency in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
I went on and I took that job. So I was in the private for-profit sector. And while I was down in New Orleans, I actually started my own consulting business. So between the agency and private consulting, I've worked on brands ranging from large brand automotive and alcohol to local fitness and retail outlets. So what I personally have done is branding, social media, content creation, execution, and physical activations.
Okay. So, and then you found your way into the nonprofit world.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that and how you make that leap. Is that a difficult leap for you to go from for-profit working for alcohol, whatever, and then all of a sudden diving into, working for a nonprofit? What does that look like?
It's definitely different. I would say that one of the biggest differences in working in the nonprofit sector versus the for-profit sector is that the nonprofit sector is not really about the quote unquote product that you're selling.
Okay.
Working for a nonprofit, you do have a product, but that product is usually more of a mission. So, for Challenge America, that mission is connecting veterans and their families to helpful resources in their communities nationally. And rather than selling that, the biggest focus is on educating, whether it be the general public or the target demographic about the mission, and also creating relationships, whether it be with nonprofit partners, donors, or partner organizations that help better the cause. So I think the biggest difference is sort of your intention, whereas in the nonprofit, you have the mission, and in the for-profit, you have the product. And it's more about relational building than it is about selling.
So behind the scenes, in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis, what's the difference then in your experience in terms of working with a for-profit versus a nonprofit? Does it change your sort of workday at all and how you would go about your process as a social media expert?
The workday is rather similar. I would say the biggest connection between the two is the aspect of building trust. A lot of people say that when you work in the for-profit or you work in advertising that you sell your soul, and that doesn't have to be true. Working for a nonprofit, you definitely are a lot more honest. You're not looking for a funky way to tell a story that hasn't been told. You're not trying to show, how well the stain remover takes a stain out of the carpet. You're trying to show something that really does mean something and have much larger implications. So I say that I have a lot more personal gratification in my day-to-day work. I feel like what I'm doing is more important. Mm-hmm. But the same skills go into it. The trust building, knowing how to package and pitch your product, your mission, concisely explain what it is that you're doing, what it is that you intend to achieve by doing it, who you're talking to, knowing the people that you're talking to. It really is the same element at its core.
So let's go back to that, knowing the people that you're talking to, knowing your audience, right? And even with a for-profit, you still have to know your audience.
Absolutely.
Is it more complicated, do you think, to understand your audience, especially given a mission as large as yours, which isn't just veterans, it's veterans and their families and on and on. I mean, is it more difficult, do you think, to really understand and grasp your audience?
Absolutely, especially because I myself am not a part of the military community.
Okay.
I'm not a veteran. I'm not a family member of a veteran, but I have many friends who are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a loose tie. But for me, I think the greatest challenge in working in the military community is the steep learning curve. Military issues obviously can be very sensitive, contingent on facts and experiences. And in order to properly do my job, I need to be able to understand these facts and experiences. And that means constantly doing research.
Okay.
It's not just a one and done. It's always researching, always knowing, making sure that I'm getting multiple opinions and facts and fact checking. And understanding that although veterans are referred to as one large category of people, much like millennials are in the for-profit world, but no two veterans and no two millennials necessarily have the same needs, experiences, or even backgrounds as each other. And it doesn't take into account, as you said, the whole family or, the people who are helping millennials live the lives that they live. So it's really just making sure that you're constantly learning and evolving and understanding the community that you're representing.
Okay. Based on that, and since you're doing so much research in this area, what have you come across as some of the really key issues in trying to communicate, not in terms of the key issues that military families are facing, but the key issues you face in trying to communicate with military families?
I would say definitely the experiential barrier, whereas, in last week's Blab with Houston, it was heavily discussed that military families, military veterans need community.
Okay.
And that makes peer support, whether it be through medical, psychological, educational, any kind of peer support groups, very popular and very effective. And knowing that I'm not a peer, I can't present myself as such. So I have to present myself as an educated expert, but not someone who you can necessarily relate to on a personal or experiential level. So it means that I have to be a lot more careful about what I'm researching and how I'm presenting it, because I can't present it as a shared experience.
Okay. Do you feel like you've been pretty successful in trying to navigate that?
I do, because I just, navigate away from the personal voice and, I speak as Challenge America, not as Alex.
Okay. So I want to shift gears a little bit now and ask you a little bit about, we're a couple weeks now off the big social media, for those of you who aren't part of social media world and working in this universe. We're now a couple weeks past the big event for the social media marketing professionals, and that's the Social Media Marketing World Conference in San Diego. And there were lots of big themes this year, one of which was video. Another one was, having to do with content and how much content is out there and how difficult it is to break through all that. So, and I know you personally haven't had a chance to go through all that material yet, but do you think there are any takeaways from that? Any insights that you gained from that conference that have maybe helped guide you?
Absolutely. I mean, the social media world is ever evolving. Every day you wake up, rapidly. There's a new platform. Yeah, there's a new video platform. There's a new chat platform. There's a new best way to present information via Facebook, via Google+, via Twitter, via Instagram, you name it, via Blab. After I didn't know about Blab actually until watching the sessions from Social Media World Conference, and that puts me slightly behind the times. But there are other things that I'm sure that I know about, that weren't presented at the sessions, and it's really a big community, and especially in social media. Like, if you're not coming together and you're not sharing all this information, you'll never grow. If you're not adaptable, you'll never grow. So it's really learning how to leverage all these new platforms for veterans and for their families, and seeing what the challenges might be, such as, rurally located veterans that might not have access to the internet or might not have, the education level to access, these platforms. And it's, we come in where we figure out how to make it adaptable for everybody.
Okay. Do you have any, based on your experience so far, do you have any tips or advice that you could give someone else who might be in a position similar to yours to help them sort of cut through the noise and reach the community they're trying to contact?
Absolutely. And the first thing that I would say is know your audience, research your audience, know where they are, know who they are, know what they're interested in seeing. Visual content is really ruling the online universe right now. If you can make compelling, interesting visual ways of displaying research and information and statistics to really get people on board with your mission and help them understand, that's the best possible way you can do it. Don't just regurgitate facts, find a fresh way to do it and be an expert.
Okay. So let's go back to a point you made earlier, which is about, I'm interested in this, which is about rural communities and having access to the internet. And it's not even so much that, it's, there are quite a few veterans who maybe aren't even online. So how do you use this medium to connect with them? How do you overcome, whether it's the fact that they live in a rural area and they want to get online, but they're still using the old like AOL dial-up thing, or the image, if everything's video and visuals, if it takes 10 minutes for the visual to load, that's not very helpful.
Right.
So how do you overcome that? How do you use social media to still reach out to these people?
Well, especially in a world right now where the internet has been suggested as the best way to deliver health treatment, to rural veterans who can't physically access, a VA healthcare center where the nearest one could be 4 to 6 hours away and maybe they don't have reliable transportation. So the way to do this is to tap into their communities. Rural veterans really rely heavily on their communities and to support and access resources on healthcare in particular. So that could be, whatever the nearest local hospital is. Target these organizations, a religious institution, the rural social lodge, the local grocery, whatever it is where people congregate in the area. Reach out, know these organizations, know the communities, and sort of get a foot in the door there to help bring in the individuals who can't necessarily access it on their own.
Okay, so working through organizations to reach people. Okay.
Absolutely.
Friends and family, all that stuff too, probably, right?
Yes, and that's the best way to get visibility.
Okay, cool. Well, and they're probably people they trust too, so
yes.
That helps. But speaking of that, and you said earlier that, when you're talking about issues that are specific to this community, because there's so many passions and the issues are so diverse, it seems to me that there's a fine line when you're doing this kind of work between education, which you touched on earlier, is something that's so important, and advocacy. And sometimes advocacy can turn people off and it can have a counter effect, right? So your goal is to try to reach out to people and to educate them on an issue, but they may misinterpret your intent, and there might be some backlash against that. So it seems like a very fine line to me, and I could be wrong about that, but if it is a fine line, how do you walk that line? How do you do your job without turning away accidentally, unintentionally so, a large community of people that you're trying to reach?
Once again, I do think it's about truth telling. I would say issues related to veterans, homelessness, mental health, access to education, and government assistance will always cause strong opinions, some very strong favorable, some very strong negative. And sometimes in trying to offer up that information and assistance, controversy arises. I would say the best thing to remember is that you can't steer clear of what's important for fear that it may upset individuals.
That's a good point.
And what I make sure to do in order to avoid controversy as best I can is to make sure I have all the facts before putting something out there, because unsubstantiated claims are the easiest way to step into a trap and get into trouble. A specific example I can think of that causes a lot of controversy in the veteran community is whenever you talk about the VA.
Oh, yeah.
As Houston stated last week, we do support the VA, but do we support everything that they've ever done? No, and we absolutely think that there are things that can be improved upon. And this is part of our mission, is raising awareness about the areas of veteran life and care that need fixing and to see what we can do to direct people to immediate solutions.
Okay. So I know one of the things you've been working on lately is education. And I've seen some of your posts, and you've been talking a lot about education lately. What are some of the key issues there in education? And what have you been trying to do through your tool to educate people about these issues and how to overcome them?
I would say that in the forefront of that, it's access to education, and that there are a lot of barriers that sort of prevent veterans from going in. It's whether or not their experience is going to transfer. I mean, a student veteran, someone who served before they went to college, for example, may have a ton of relevant life and course experience. Mm-hmm. And, without knowing or without entering the right institution, may not be able to transfer those skills, or may not be able to receive the correct financial benefits, and might not be able to afford, an appropriate education. Additionally, VA benefits only cover a certain amount of time. So there's been a lot of lobbying recently for extended time for certain degrees, like STEM degrees, and which take a longer amount of time. So really, it's just kind of knowing what the problems are and seeing how you can direct individuals to the right places, the right sources, the right institutions that will support them and help them build on their experience rather than push them backwards on a life trajectory.
Okay. Do you have any sort of, I feel like we're getting close to the end of our interview period, and I like to open it up to the audience. Do you have any other sort of insights you'd like to share on sort of working in this space and dealing with this community? I mean, you touched on a lot. So is there anything else you'd like to add, or anything you think I should have asked that maybe I didn't?
I'll just say that kind of in summation, that there's 3 points, and these are the 3 main points that I would tell anybody or any social media professional, or really anybody who wants to work with veterans who may or may not be one themselves or a part of the community. And the first and foremost is to know your audience. Remember that you're talking to not only the veterans, not only donors, right, but the entire community and family that's behind them. And it's really important to be conscious of this, to understand what you're putting out there and to understand who you're reaching. Second of all, the need to be constantly learning and growing, whether it's with social media outlets or being up on the news, certain bills, legislation related to all walks of veteran life, which are constantly being updated, pushed through, renewed, things that you need to know about, and to really read on blogs and editorials to get a more holistic grasp of the issues that you're being an expert in. And the third is that by building trust, and you can do this by making sure that you're educated on the past, present, and future issues surrounding the cause, and delivering quality content. So in being transparent, be upfront about your mission, and be available to respond to your followers' questions.
Okay. Wow. It sounds like a full-time job.
Funny it is.
Okay. Great. Well, I think at this point, if anyone in the audience would like to jump on, you're welcome. We'll open up a seat. Please feel free to just select on the channel that appears at the bottom of your screen and ask to hop in. And if you have any questions for Alex or myself, that would be great. We'd love for you to join us. And if not, then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. I think I've learned a lot. Excellent job. And have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Houston.
Okay.
Bye. Yeah.